There's no question about it, George. I mean, for anybody that would think that this is entertainment or something like that, I have to say that in all of the cases that I've been involved in, and now it's hundreds, there is nothing that I've come across more disturbing than what my family and I suffered and endured for that period of time in that house. And I certainly don't take any pride in saying that, but it's the truth.
How old were you when you finally got out of there?
I believe I was 14, and we had left in, I think it was 1980, December of 1980, when we moved out. And the only reason that we left, because we were all under demonic oppression at various times while living in the house.
All of you.
And what really finally prompted us to leave was we woke up one morning in December of 1980 to a horrible stench of what smelled like wiring that was burned up. You know, it just smelled like this horrible burning smell. And sure enough, every appliance in the house was burned up and fried. I mean, every refrigerator, the stoves and the washer and the dryer, everything that was plugged in was burned up. And also one of my brother's pets, my mother had found dead. And that was enough to finally break the hold that these entities had. And we ended up leaving there. We left a good deal of the furnishings and decor. We took our personal items, but left a good deal of the stuff behind, and we ended up moving in with, my dad had left home when I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. Never easy.
Had a new man in her life at that time, and she was engaged to him, and we ended up moving in there. And, you know, my brother and I never had any paranormal supernatural experiences while living at his house. However, and his name is Richard, and he's still with us, and I had saw Richard some years back, and he told me something that I didn't know. And he said that my mother made him promise not to tell us that when we left the house and moved in with him, she was still having those experiences and attacks up until the time of her untimely death.
In his house?
Yes, in his
Whoa.
house. I never knew it until Richard told me this. And my mother died at the age of 44 of a cerebral hemorrhage. And I have no doubt, George, that these demonic forces had a hand in this because of the amount of stress and pressure that she was under. And she died 2 months after my beloved grandmother, her mom, had died from a sudden series of heart attacks, and it was the same thing. She was also under tremendous stress and pressure from what was taking place in the house and with our family. And so those were the two closest people to me in my life that were suddenly gone. And I tell you, I went down a dark road after that to where I didn't want to live anymore, and I didn't care whether I lived or died or did anything, and I didn't aspire to be anything or do anything. And I grew up on the streets. I grew up with the worst of the worst people, and a lot of those people are dead or in prison, and I very easily could have been dead or in prison also. And so I'm just so thankful to God that he had another plan for my life, but it also required me to step up also and say, I want to make changes. I can do better, and I can be better. And in that, I must apply myself and really work. It requires hard work to be able to make these types of changes in our life.
Did these UFO experiences that you also had have anything to do with this?
It's all connected. George, it is all connected. And there might be people listening right now that would say, this man, he's crazy. There's no way these things are connected. I'm here to tell you that all of these types of phenomena are connected. The Bible has 70 scriptures in there that talks about UFOs. Psalm 68:17 says the chariots of God are 20,000. These scriptures talk about UFOs, and there are it's everywhere in the Bible. So I believe this, and again, do I have the answers for sure? No, I don't. But these are my opinions. I believe that for whatever reasons, our God, who created everything, has a heavenly host, and they sometimes use these vehicles to traverse the skies. And if this is true, then if the devil was cast out of heaven with a third of the angels, as it is said, then I believe they were cast out of heaven in those flying vehicles. And I also believe that in the vastness of this universe, that God created life elsewhere out there. And is it possible that they come and visit us? It certainly is, in my estimation and belief. So we have, and also we know that our governments, have this technology now, as well. So you have 4 possibilities there. And in my mind, based on my experience, which as you know, I've had vast UFO experiences as well, these things are very much connected.
Who are the others that were connected to you when you were 3?
Isn't that an amazing picture? And that was a Polaroid photograph taken in 1969. I was 3 years old. It was supposed to be a picture of a little 3-year-old boy. And if you look at that photograph closely, you see all kinds of different-looking beings in the photograph. Now, there are several types of humanoid-looking beings in single file behind me in that photograph, yet they're different sizes. Some have bigger ears, bigger hands, and if you look to the left, if you look really hard, you will see what looks like a little gray alien standing there to my left, and to the left of the little gray alien-looking thing looks like a miniature Bigfoot-looking creature with this big...
That's what I thought.
Yes, George, it is there. That is a Polaroid photo that was taken in 1969, was not doctored in any way, shape, or form. None of my photos are doctored. They are what they are. And if you really look at the photo like you did, and if the listeners take a look at the Coast to Coast website and really look at that photo, you will see many. And in the upper right, above me, there is what appears to be, it looks like the face of a lion that is above me and to the right. So, I mean, there are many different... Was a doorway open when that photo was taken? I don't know, but it sure seems like there was some sort of dimensional doorway open at the time.
Let's go to the phones now. We go east of the Rockies. Caitlin and Steve in Pinellas Park, Florida. Welcome to the program. Hello there. Caitlin and Steve. They've already been taken.
No, George, are we there?
You there?
Yes, George, we're there.
Okay. Almost hung up on you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. East of the Rockies, we're a little bit slow down here in Florida.
Okay, go ahead. You're on.
Well, with the pina coladas on the beach, you know how it is.
Not bad.
The bottom line, I definitely agree with the other callers. There's definitely some things going on out there. I cannot explain myself, but I have seen. There are forces, there are things that I have seen in my own life, and I'm not some redneck, southern, uneducated individual. I'm educated, and so be it. But the bottom line is there are forces out there at work. There are things that are operating, and I do not have a grasp myself what they actually are, but they're real. There are forces pulling to the left, to the right, some pulling up, some pulling down.
They're there. Now, who's Caitlin?
Caitlin is my daughter. She's my 12-year-old daughter, and she also wants to have a chance to speak.
Is she there?
Yes, she is. Absolutely. Caitlin, speak to George.
Hello, George.
Hi there, Caitlin. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm assuming you might have had one of these strange occurrences too.
Oh, yes.
What happened?
Well, it was the night after my grandmother's death. I was going to sleep, and then I heard these pitter-patters on my floor, and so I came to look at it, and no one was there. Like, everyone was sleeping, and then I went back, and I saw this shadowy figure just walking by. And so I just freaked out, and I just didn't know what to do.
You think it was your grandmother?
Maybe, because my mom also had the same experience with her dad.
Let me bring Bill in. Bill, what do you think? Could it have been the grandmother?
And yes, now I will say this, and nobody really understands how the ghostly phenomena works. I will say this: I do believe that our God allows our loved ones to look in on us once in a while. That said, there is the flip side to where demons, which are called familiar spirits, can impersonate our long-lost loved one, or even people who are alive. They can mimic the voice, anything like that. So we have to be very, very careful, and this is where the scriptures come in and say, test all spirits. So for me, if I were to hear or see something like that, I would immediately take power and authority over it and bind and cast it out. And if it immediately leaves and goes away, well, then you know that's something demonic. So we're to test the spirits, and that's the only way that you could have a clear-cut answer as to what exactly that may be.
It is amazing how many people have these kinds of experiences, Bill. I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it?
More now than ever, George.
And what has kicked that into high gear? Episodes, world
controversial thing. I strongly believe, and look, I can't prove this. I'm not there. I don't know what they're doing. I do research into things, and to where I said I was uneducated before, I'm very educated now, and I thank God and praise God for blessing me with wisdom and knowledge far beyond anything that I could ever imagine in my life. And that said, I feel that this CERN device has something to do with opening up these portals and doorways, and some people may disagree, but I strongly believe that it is working in conjunction with these D-Wave computers, and I absolutely believe that this is creating portals and dimensional doorways that are opening and loosing more demonic spirits on this earth.
Are these doorways, though, geared toward where all the demons may be? Are they on a different level, and we seem to have hit that one and created that opening?
I don't have the answer for that. I mean, is this intentional, or is this something that through experimentation has gone wrong, and that doorway has opened now and they can't close it? I don't have the answer, but whatever it is, based on my case files, and George, I'll tell you, I've said this to you before, some of the high-profile people that have come to me for help, you would just be shocked if I listed some of these names. So no one is exempt from these things happening, and they are happening more and more often. So something is up. Somebody is doing
no doubt.
something, and it is not good.
Let's go to Scott in Philadelphia. Hi, Scott. Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, George. Hey, Bill. How you doing?
Good.
Hi, Scott.
Bill is a good friend of mine. He's been on my show quite a few times. We've known each other for a lot of years, and I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
What show do you do, Scott? Tell us.
I do a show called the Fearless Ghost Hunter Show on Paramania.
Good for you.
Bill was actually my first guest when I did a show, and he was a guest my 50th show, and he's been on multiple times. And Bill is he's the real deal. And I can tell you that I had an experience with Bill's, I guess you could call it demons at one time. Bill was speaking in Maryland, and Bill had an experience when he was on a radio show with a gentleman in Florida where the guy asked him, why do you think this is demonic? And when that question was asked, there was a black figure that actually ran through the studio and scared the heck out of the host. And Bill was speaking in Maryland, and I thought, well, if he got that kind of reaction, let me see if we can get the same kind of reaction with asking that question again. So Bill was doing a lecture, and I asked the same question, and well, nothing happened. And I thought, oh, okay, well, it happened one time, so not a big deal. So left the lecture, and I was walking along the sidewalk with another couple. They went to the right, and I walked straight. Next thing I knew, I was up in the air and pushed down on the ground with some definite force.
Jeez.
And bounced out of a backpack with a computer in it, and I bounced off of that. And what was funny about it, they were about 5 feet away from me. They never even heard it happen. And I thought to myself, well, I guess if you ask the question, I got the answer. And called Bill the next day, and Bill was a little bit upset about it. And I said, well, it was my own fault because I should have never asked the question. And
do you think the question was the catalyst?
oh yeah, it was almost like a challenge to it, and it answered. And you know, Bill and I have talked about it, and we've been friends for a long time. I recently gave Bill a Bible. It's 150 years old, and Bill's been going back through reading that, and I don't know if Bill's going to touch on the changes and that stuff. But George, you keep talking about his first book, Dark Force. Have you read Delivered?
No, I have not.
His second book is amazing, and I will tell you, if you think the first book was something, the second book is totally amazing. It is it reveals, it basically is. He goes on from the point when Dark Force ends to a point in his life, and I'll tell you, it is the most revealing book about someone's life you ever read, and it's a very powerful book to read.
It continues. Scott, thanks for popping on here. Bill, these forces are just everywhere on you, aren't they?
Yeah, and that took place before I started my journey as an exorcist. That was, you know, when I first started out, and you had me the first time you had me on the show. You know, I was not where I am right now, and I was still very much having some problems as far as entities trying to infiltrate in and keep me moving forward.
You were in a dark place. You were in a dark place then.
Absolutely. And, you know, my life is so blessed now, and I don't have that kind of garbage anymore. But Scott's exactly right. Everything he said, that happened. And he's referring to a guy by the name of Tim Yancey, who's another good friend of mine in Florida who had a show down there. And I was on that show, and they actually saw a black figure manifest in the studio, and he made a video about it, went on the record and said, hey, this happened.
Is this like that hooded creature you were talking about earlier?
Yes,
same
exactly.
Thing.
And they were shaken to the core, you know, when that happened. And again, I'm very, very thankful that that chapter is closed in my life, and I would never, ever wish that on anybody. But George, when a person is targeted by these demonic forces, they never stop. So it is absolutely essential for me, especially being in the position now with God working through me to deliver other people from evil.
And you got to tell us, Bill, when we come back, how do you cleanse people from these demons? Have you ever, or do you think, Bill, you have been abducted by an extraterrestrial group?
Well, that's a great question, George, and I have to say, I have had many experiences, and I talk about that in the second book, Delivered, with non-human entities, and I have had an experience, one that comes to mind right now that took place in 1997, July of 1997, to where I'll be as brief as possible because I know we're running out of time. I woke up in the middle of the night, and a 7-foot-tall, non-human-looking entity was standing at the foot of the bed with big black eyes, long, skinny arms, long, skinny fingers, and it was like a glowing, like a greenish, yellowish type of glow. And I recall that thing. I'm condensing. I recall that thing reaching out and grabbing. It wrapped its left hand around my right ankle, and I'll never forget it, George. I'll never forget the coldness of that hand.
Oh.
And when that hand grabbed my ankle, I felt paralyzed. And the next thing I remember is being somewhere else, and it was almost like the backseat of a car. I mean, that's what it seemed like to me, and I can't say for sure, but there was a human sitting next to me at that point, and he had a black suit on, slick back black hair, clean shaven, and was a sinister-looking individual. And he was seated to my left, and he turned his head. He didn't turn his body. He turned his head to me and said, "Don't talk about this." And I recall waking up the next morning, and I felt like my body was so fatigued, I felt like I had a very strenuous workout. And that was July of 1997. But I've had many, many experiences with UFOs. I've taken many photographs. I've shot video footage. I've had as many as 50 people in a group with me that have witnessed these things. I have been in different states. I've been on airplanes, buses, and these things have come, and others have seen it with me. My footage has been featured on the 6 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news. You name it, that footage has been featured. So, yes, I'm long-winded on this answer, but yes, I've had many, many experiences, and yes, I do believe that something took place to where I was taken somewhere.
You're lucky you haven't been hurt with all these things that have been happening to you.
George, it's the power of God, honestly. I mean, when we think about this and examine this, and you know me, and I'm speaking the truth, and I know this may be hard to believe for some people out there, but I assure you I am speaking the truth. And how all of this can happen to one man, God only knows. And I praise God for the protection that He has had over my life, my entire life, because George is exactly right. I could very easily have been killed or at least damaged psychologically to the point to where I wouldn't be able to function anymore.
To the phones we go. First-time caller Kyle in Martin, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Kyle. Go ahead.
Yes, I had a question for Bill.
Sure thing.
When you were talking about the CERN collider, you were talking about the Hadron Collider, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What is your reasoning behind you believing it opening portals? Is it the fact that it essentially just collides atoms together at light speed?
Yeah, and I believe, now again, am I there? No. Am I seeing this firsthand? No. But I've done a lot of research into this, and I truly believe that something sinister is taking place there, and I believe that portals and doorways are being opened. Think of that movie Stargate. Remember that Kurt Russell movie Stargate?
Sure do.
Okay, I really think that something like that is either being mimicked or trying to be replicated or something. And we have these D-Wave quantum computers now that are, according to this man, Geordie Rose, and George, I'm sure you know all about this, and you've probably covered this on your show many times. These things, according to him, are like living entities. And so we have technology that is just so far beyond what we can imagine. And this is, in my opinion, very, very dangerous. It seems to me the more technologically advanced we become, the worse off we become as a civilization.
When they were playing around with CERN, there was real concern that they were going to create mini wormholes that would grow and gobble up the planet. Remember that?
Yeah. This is dangerous stuff, and I know that it requires, boldness and courage to move forward to, what's that saying, no guts, no glory. I understand that, but we must be careful because we're talking about dealing with all life on our planet. I mean, and furthermore, George, I hope the next time you have me back,
and you will be back. Trust me.
And I thank you. I really do, my brother. I appreciate it. I always enjoy being on with you because we have such a good dialogue. The next time I come back, I want to talk about something that is so mind-blowing that people will have to literally see this for themselves to believe what I'm going to say. And Scott, when he called in, he mentioned that he gave me a 150-year-old Bible. That Bible's actually 157 years old. And the reason he said that, and we don't have time to go into it now, but there is something so momentous taking place right now, it has to be seen to believe, to be believed.
It sure does. Let's go to Martha. Go ahead. Martha in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, welcome to the show. Hi, Martha.
Hi. Oh, thank you both for being there tonight.
You're welcome.
Oh, my God.
Hi, Martha.
Hi, Bill. I'm so grateful that I tuned in tonight. I really needed to hear what you had to say. Bill, earlier you explained exactly what happened to my family. You helped me to understand.
Well, I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family.
Yeah, my childhood home, I've long believed that it was definitely demonically oppressed or influenced. And, when you explained how when they come in and they divide and conquer.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
It's the truth.
It's
the truth, sweetie. And when God is with us and when we're making God first, and I'm certainly not coming on here to preach a sermon, I'm just talking reality. It's God that's the uniter. So when we unite and we come together, no matter what it is, when we come together, we're strong. But the devil knows this, so his MO is to divide. So when he divides us, whether that is as a people or a family or whatever, we're putty in his hands because now we're weakened, and those demonic forces can come in and just have their way.
And did the family finally rid themselves of this situation, Martha?
No.
No? You mean it's still hanging around?
Well, no. I mean, this was decades ago.
Yeah.
I'm close to your age, George. So.
You're 35. Good for you.
I was just going to say, are you 34, 35?
I'm 34. You're 35. I'm 34. You're 36. Okay. No.
And how are you now, Martha? Are you in your life now? Do you feel like you're free from it? Are you having any reoccurring problems or issues?
I don't feel that I'm totally free from it. No, I feel like there's, and much more free than I have been, than I was certainly as a child when I was completely.
Well, that's a good thing.
Vulnerable to it, but no, I don't feel totally free, and I totally agree.
That's a bad thing.
You said.
I want you to do this. I want you to visit my website, BillBean.net.
Okay,
I want you to go into the contact. I want you to send me a message, and my assistant, Melinda, will get back to you, and I want to help you. So if you are interested in my help, I'm a very busy man, but I'm never too busy to help somebody. So if you are interested in my help,
take advantage of it, Martha.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Very welcome. Jan in Brooklyn, New York. Hi, Jan. Go ahead.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I think it's absolutely wonderful what you're doing, Bill. I mean, God bless you. And what you do also, George, is like fantastic. So we're very lucky to have you both.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Anyhow, two things. I was really demonically possessed, I say, like for 5 minutes. It was like completely nutty. I had the worst pain, unbelievable. It was not human pain. I thought I was going to die. I couldn't move and everything. And luckily, I got rid of it with a minimal infrared lamp in 5 minutes. But I want you to say this. I actually feel that people past 50, like you talked about vibration, and I agree with you. And people past 50, a lot of them have bad vibrations and their health isn't good. And so that allows more negative forces to come into them. And I think people really have to start learning how to eat and exercising.
I agree.
And also, a healer told me something fantastic to do, spray with a half distilled water and half alcohol from the drugstore, and it cleans out the place. And one last quick thing, you take a bath with Epsom salts and baking soda, and that also removes some of the negative energies. What do you think about all this?
Praise God. And that's wonderful that you're enlightened on these things, and God bless you, my dear. And I pray that you have nothing but blessings and peace for the rest of your life.
Bill, have you ever had a case where you could not get rid of the demon?
I've had cases to where I've had to go back several times. And I'll say this as well. In some of the cases, and I hate to say this, but there has been a few where mental illness was tied in to the demonic problem. And sometimes they go hand in hand. And I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true because, again, it's negativity, it's low frequency, low vibration. And in a couple of those cases, I was unsuccessful. And again, for whatever reasons, and I certainly don't blame God for anything. It's, God's will to do anything and free anybody that he chooses to free. But I've been into a couple of those to where the person said that, they were hugging me and they felt delivered from it and they were great. And then a couple of days later, even a couple cases, the next day later, they're right back in the pit again. And so it breaks my heart when those things happen, and I still stay involved with those people, and I try to do anything that I can for them, to help them in any way that I can, to encourage them to move forward, because life is about moving forward. We must continue to move forward in all of our ways for all of our life. It's the devil that tries to drag us backward.
Let's go to Robert in Salt Lake City, Utah. Hello, Robert. Thank you for calling. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to share with you an experience I'm going through right now with my, she's now my ex-wife, but we've got 5 little children together, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 3. After our 5th baby, she got hooked on the pain meds, which graduated into the hard drugs, the heroin, the meth, and all that kind of stuff. And
horrible.
It pretty much turned our life upside down. And, initially I just thought it was a substance abuse, but the more we got into it, I realized that there was more. And as I was listening to Bill, and he's talking about, things that we bring into our life can open portals to allow these, evil entities into our life. And anyways, we ended up moving, and about 6 months ago, I was laying in bed, and she was laying next to me, and all of a sudden we felt this dark, dark presence over us, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, and I just started praying my heart out. And when I was able to release that entity, I turned to her. I said, "Are you bringing these evil spirits into our home?" And she just burst into tears, and she just said, "I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was just a lot of tension in the home, and you could just tell the kids could sense it. I could sense it. But the turning point
Robert,
was,
it's very dangerous.
Yeah, it was, and I'm a spiritual person. I always have been since I was young, and before we would leave our home every day, I would gather the kids up, and we kneel in a circle and we pray at the front of the door before we walk out. And my wife was not religious growing up, and she converted to my religion, an LDS religion. But this was the turning point for us. We're sitting down kneeling, and I'm halfway through the prayer, and I looked up and I said, and I won't say her name, but I said, "You've got to leave." And she looked at me, and she got up and walked away. And it was like she was a completely different person. And when you say, so I have pictures of her. She was a bright-eyed, beautiful young girl. She's only 27, and I have a picture of her now, and it's the dark. Her eyes are dark,
and looks 3 times her age, I bet.
Yes, she does. So and this is all within the last year that it's. So here's my question. She's pretty much living on the streets now, and I'm leaving out a lot of details. But is there? I know for a fact that she's opened portals, and there's entities in her. What would you suggest?
30 seconds left here, Bill.
I would suggest this, and I'll say it really quickly. Get in touch with me through my website, and I would suggest that if she's open for help, then I'd be willing to help her. But if she is not open to be helped, then there's nothing that can be done, because it comes down to free will.
Bill, once again, thank you. Let's keep in touch, my friend.